Rock and roll has seen plenty of wild characters throughout the ages. Since the 60s, the genre was infamous for producing out-of-control artists fueled by drugs and alcohol. But who was the craziest? We're going to exclude Gigi Allen for now, who was known for defecating and self-mutilating on stage. His antics are incomparable. I mean, look at this guy. In the rest of the industry, though, there was one man whose name rises above almost all his peers: Keith Moon. Firstly, as a legendary drummer for The Who, but notoriously as a volatile, unpredictable party animal who stopped at nothing to entertain himself. Welcome to Behind the Music. In this video, we dive into the life of the rogue drummer. From destroying an entire hotel and near-fatal explosions to killing a man, how did Keith Moon become the craziest person in rock and roll? And how did it lead to his untimely death? Stay tuned to find out.
Keith Moon's drumming was an expression of his personality and his ego and his grandiosity and his ridiculousness and his theatricality and his sense of humor. A lot of what Keith did was incredibly funny.
Like all good pranksters, Keith Moon struggled at school. He had a restless mind that wanted to bounce from one thing to another. His teachers didn't have much belief in his future, and before the age of 15, he dropped out. But by that point, he'd found his passion: drums. Influenced by jazz music, beach rock, and R&B. His first band was The Escorts, which he left for the cover band Beachcombers, and he was already developing a stage presence, becoming known for his on-stage antics like using a starter's pistol. None of his bandmates were as keen as Moon to go professional. And so, at the age of 17, while working part-time at a department store, he auditioned for a band previously known as The Detours. Their new name? The Who. They were on the rise in the British rock scene, and Keith Moon fitted perfectly, helping gear the band towards success and carve out a uniquely destructive image. At a performance at the Railway Hotel, Pete Townshend's guitar smashed through the ceiling of the venue, which was met with excitement by the crowd. Not one to miss out, Keith Moon knocked over his drum kit at the end of the set. This would become a signature of the band, with Townshend and Moon smashing their equipment in increasingly dramatic ways. Behind the scenes, though, things were chaotic. Keith and bass player John Entwistle were close. But most of the bandmates were not close to one another, and singer Roger Daltrey quickly grew tired of Moon's antics, who had now earned the nickname Moon the Loon. The Who's debut on American television, a market previously only conquered by the Beatles, Keith Moon made sure to announce their arrival with a bang. Literally. Moon was a fan of explosives, and on the stage he filled his bass drum with flash powder. Moon had become something of a pyromaniac, taking any opportunity to detonate explosives, and was known to shove cherry bombs into toilets. But America was not used to these rock and roll ways. At the end of The Who's televised set, while the rest of the band smashed their guitars, a huge explosion blinded the cameras and stunned the audience, with one woman even fainting. By the standards of Moon the Loon, though, this prank was milquetoast. Nobody was safe from his antics, no matter where they were. The famous British actor Oliver Reed was a drinking buddy of Keith's, and while he was attending a Hollywood premiere on the red carpet, he was smacked in the face with a pie. It was accompanied by a note informing Reed that the gift was from Keith as part of Pie in the Face International, sponsored by Keith Moon. If there was one thing he loved more than pranking his friends, though, it was destruction. Throughout their touring career, Keith earned The Who a notorious reputation in the hotel industry. Regularly, Moon would leave thousands of dollars in damages by smashing up rooms just like the equipment at the end of their sets. On his 21st birthday, the band was playing at the Holiday Inn in Flint, Michigan. It started with a huge cake fight in Keith's hotel room, but quickly spilled outside. Once Keith was intoxicated, he stole the keys to a visitor's Lincoln Continental and drove it headfirst into the swimming pool. By the end of the night, a piano was destroyed. Countless other objects were thrown into the pool, fights broke out, and Moon's front tooth was chipped. At the hospital, doctors were unable to administer an anesthetic because of how drunk he was. The band was slapped with a $24,000 bill, which would be equal to over $200,000 today. On top of that, the entire group were banned from staying at any other Holiday Inn ever again. Seemingly on a mission to get blacklisted from all hotels, Keith didn't stop his rampage. And at other establishments, Keith was luckier. During part of a European tour in Copenhagen, Moon burst a waterbed in a hotel corridor while trying to move it into the lobby. Needless to say, he was in an inebriated state. Facing the prospect of paying a hefty cleanup bill, it was what he did next that set him apart from all others in the business. He actually complained to hotel management, complaining that the bed had broken suddenly and damaged his belongings. Surprisingly, this paid off. The hotel moved him up to the presidential suite, but they were quickly reminded who they were dealing with when Keith went on to utterly obliterate that room too. Having found success in the United States, Keith began spending more time in Los Angeles, where he found non-stop partying, drinking a bottle of brandy a day. This was the beginning of a decline from a fun-loving party animal into something much darker. But it all might have been different if not for one night in 1970. On one fateful night in 1970, Keith Moon, along with his wife, Kim McLagan, and a group of friends were having a night out in an unassuming Hatfield pub. Since achieving global stardom, Keith didn't travel alone. His bodyguard and chauffeur, Neil Boland, was escorting them. A group of skinheads grew angry with the band because they were dressed in sparkling outfits. As a physical confrontation grew nearer, Keith and the rest of his party retreated back to their Bentley. But they soon found their way blocked by the skinheads, who were now throwing coins at the car. When Neil Boland got out to try and de-escalate the situation, Keith took the wheel. At this point, he was extremely inebriated, as was the rest of the group. According to reports, none of them remembered the exact details of what happened next. And to make things worse, Keith didn't have a license. He'd never had a license. What happened next was tragic. Keith ended up driving over and killing his bodyguard, Neil. Incredibly, the judge threw the case out, ruling that Keith had no choice but to try and drive to safety. This tragedy would haunt Keith for the rest of his life, with one of his partners revealing he would wake up some nights screaming. And the breakdown of his marriage didn't help his slide into drug and alcohol dependency. His excessive use of drugs and alcohol began playing havoc with the functioning of the band. During a show in California in 1973, The Who were forced to stop mid-set when Keith passed out. He had taken tranquilizers and alcohol. Keith was carried backstage and given a shower and cortisone, which returned him to consciousness, but only briefly. He passed out soon again after, leading to the band inviting a drummer from the audience to fill his place. Keith's antics didn't slow down, and a few years later, he passed out on stage again, causing a show to be canceled. His bandmates delivered him an ultimatum to stop drinking or quit the band. This was enough to jolt Keith into action, but by this time, he had become a serious alcoholic. And his withdrawals were so severe that he was prescribed the sedative hemineverin to help. He was left with it despite the extreme potency of the drug. After a night out with Paul McCartney, Keith took a handful and went to sleep. The next day, he was found dead, with a total of 32 pills found in his system, more than 5 times the amount needed to kill someone. He was only 32 years old and left a huge hole in The Who. Some couldn't believe it. Roger Daltrey said that even at the funeral, he expected Keith to jump out of the coffin and reveal it was another one of his pranks. But it wasn't. Moon the Loon's legacy lives on as a pioneer of British music both on and off stage. Even in a world full of characters and party animals, Keith Moon stood out as a man truly living life to the fullest. There's no doubt he was the craziest man in rock and roll. That's it for this video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more in-depth videos that go behind the music. We'll talk to you again in the next one.